Good morning. You're watching Power Breakfast here on CNBC-TV18 on this penultimate trading day of the week. Also, the weekly options expiry of the Nifty contracts. I'm Hormas Fatakia and Mamakshi Dhoria is back with me today. Mamakshi, good morning. We take a bit of a pause in yesterday's trading session, but a very important session lies ahead of us as well.
Well, absolutely, Hormas. After the kind of rally that we saw on Monday, there was a bit of a pause. There was a bit of recovery yesterday. Broader markets also did quite well. But, let's get started with some of the top headlines then. Wall Street ends mixed. The S&P 500 edged deeper into the positive territory for the year. Nasdaq rises as chip and AI stocks rise, but the Dow ended lower for a second straight session as the 10-year Treasury yield reclaimed its highest level since mid-February.
Asian markets have opened largely lower as investors assess the US and China trade developments. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a marginally positive start for our own markets as well.
Crude oil prices ease after US government data showed crude oil stockpiles rose unexpectedly last week, prompting concerns of excess supplies. Brent trades at $65 a barrel. Gold prices too fall to almost a 5-week low as trade optimism rises.
And in key earnings, TVS Motors had a largely in-line set of numbers. Profits rose 27% from last year. Revenues also increased by 23%. It was a bit of a lackluster session last night on Wall Street. So, no particular directional cues that you are getting from across the globe. And even if you take a look at the Asian markets, the screen is pretty much in the red. There is no particular gain that you are seeing or an outlier that you are seeing among the Asian indices. The Hang Seng is down 0.5%. The Taiwanese index is below the flat line as well. Japanese indices, the Nikkei continues to underperform. Today down another 1.25% as well. It was down in yesterday's trading session too. The Kospi is down 0.25%. And the Shanghai Composite too is trading below the flat line. So no particular cue that is emerging in terms of direction from the Asian indices, and that is reflecting on the GIFT Nifty as well, because another lackluster start is in the offing. And if you pull up the GIFT Nifty, you would see that the implied open is currently suggesting a 30-point uptick. At one point was up around 65 points. That has come down to 30 points. So consolidation pretty much likely to continue, at least for the benchmark index, Vamakshi. And of course, today being the weekly expiry as well. So an important session lies ahead.
Well, absolutely, Hormas. An important session does lie ahead of us. But, let's recap what happened in the US markets. Wall Street ended mixed overnight, with the Nasdaq continuing its sharp rally fueled by major tech stocks, while the Dow Jones and S&P ended flat to negative. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were mixed across the major indexes in Wednesday trading as tech stocks continue to power the Nasdaq to the upside. The Dow was down 89 points. The S&P managed to inch up about 6 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq was up 137. The White House on Wednesday announcing that Boeing and GE Aerospace have secured a $96 billion agreement to sell as many as 210 aircraft to Qatar Airways. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg joined President Trump for a signing ceremony in Qatar with that country's emir. According to Boeing, the deal for the 787 Dreamliner and the yet-to-be-approved 77X is Boeing's largest ever for wide-body planes. And Warner Brothers Discovery announced today that, well, it's going back to where it began. It's renaming its streaming platform HBO Max 2 years after ditching the HBO branding altogether. At the company's upfront presentation to advertisers Wednesday, CEO David Zaslav says they're bringing back the HBO brand because it represents the highest quality in media and will help accelerate growth. But it's been quite a doozy for the brand, eroding over the last decade as the company's on-demand content name changed from being called HBO Now to HBO Go to HBO Max to just Max, and now back to HBO Max. Hopefully that's it. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Now back over to you in Mumbai.
Well, as sentiments have improved marginally, Goldman Sachs has cut the US recession odds to 35% from 45% earlier. Now, CNBC earlier caught up with David Mersail, the chief US economist for Goldman Sachs, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I would say we've avoided a worst case scenario. So we've avoided the sort of production disruptions that we would have seen with tariffs at levels that would have blocked trade between the U.S. and China. We had already assumed in our forecast that a 145% increase in the tariff rate was not going to be sustainable. But the decline after the deal was a little bit larger than we had previously assumed. So we now think that the increase in the U.S.'s effective tariff rate will be about 13 percentage points versus 15 before. That means a smaller increase in prices. That means a slightly smaller tax-like hit to disposable income and to consumer spending. And we've also seen, of course, over the last month, a gradual easing in financial conditions, which means, surprisingly to me, that despite having tariffs that are about 8 times as large as in 2019, markets taking it pretty well. And so that means less financial amplification of the growth hit.
Lackluster, soft, directionless, that's the global market handover. But will that have any bearing on our own markets? Our research teams joining in with how the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course, the setup on the F&O side of things. Now, Vamakshi is here to tell us the important cues that we'll be tracking later today. Vamakshi.
Absolutely, Hormaz. You know, the trading session yesterday was a volatile one. Nifty opened flat. It surged to a high. But, you know, when we look at the closing, you know, it closed almost 100 points from the day's highest point. The broader markets, however, they continued to perform quite well. The market breadth was largely in favor of the advances, with the advance decline ratio of 3:1. And this, in turn, reflected in the mid-cap as well as the small-cap index. Both of them ended, you know, the session with a gain of over 1%. Sectoral indices, most of them closed in the green. Metal, realty, energy were the top sectoral gainers, but on the flip side, Nifty Bank was the top sectoral loser. Defense stocks have been in focus all throughout last week and this week itself. You know, defense stocks, they continue to charge ahead. Look at the move that has come in on GRSC as well as Mr. Dhatu. Both of them trading with gains of around 15%. DCX India too had a good session, up almost 8%. As far as the trading session today is concerned, of course, it's the weekly expiry that we'll be watching out for. Lots of earnings lined up as well today. BKG Foods, Cochin Shipyards, Godfrey Phillips, GSW Energy, Keynes, as well as Page Industries will be reporting their numbers. So we'll have to stand by and watch out for these numbers. But apart from that, keep an eye out on two important events that are expected to happen today. FM Nirmala Sitharaman will be meeting PSB chiefs for an annual review. So we'll be keeping an eye out on some of the PSU counters. White House also is set to release its new AI policy. So all these AI-related IT names will also be in focus. Let's look at what the GIFT Nifty is indicating. You know, it's indicating a mildly positive start, up almost 23 points for the GIFT Nifty.
Indeed, mildly positive start. And of course, just to add to that important events day, of course, we'll watch out for results from Walmart as well later in the evening. It'll be interesting to see what the largest retailer of the world has to say with regards to consumer sentiment. But speaking of stocks, Vinny is here to tell us what you need to watch out for today. Vinny, good morning.
Good morning. A whole host of earnings that we're keeping an eye out on. Eicher Motors, firstly, largely in-line set of numbers. The company's focus remains on growth over margins, and they continue to gain market share. Revenue growth of 23.1% on a year-on-year basis. Margins at 24% versus 26.5%, and the management is expecting growth momentum to continue in FY26. Urban sentiment, they said, has improved recently post the budget and what we've seen coming in, so keeping an eye out on Eicher. Jubilant Food, good quarter coming in for the company as well. 93% growth in terms of profit. Revenue growth of around 19.1%. Margins remain flattish at around 19.2%. Order growth is coming in at 24.6% year-on-year basis, and LFL growth for delivery is at 21.9%. Lupin, largely in-line set of numbers in terms of revenue and EBITDA performance, but profits, that's higher than what the street was anticipating. Good growth this time was led by the North America business. So the US side of the business has done well, surprisingly. So that is something that maybe could pull up the stock in today's trading session. Tata Power, overall, we're seeing largely in-line set of numbers. Operational beat is coming in versus the estimates. TP Solar ramp-up was fast, while the capex and capacity addition, that saw some bit of a delay, which was in line with the overall industry that we've seen coming in. Revenue seeing a 9% growth and 25% growth in terms of profits of the company, and an expansion in margins. Muthoot, NII saw a growth of around 36%. Net profits saw a growth of 42.7%. Let's keep an eye out on that. Torrent Power, muted set coming in from the company. PAT was boosted by a one-off that came in. Eclox, good quarter coming in. The ACV deals is at an all-time high level, so we could see some green here. And lastly, Brigade Enterprises, earnings, and other than earnings, they also have acquired a land parcel in Chennai. So that is why we could see a run-up coming in for the stock.
Well, thank you so much for that, Vinny. And finally, we now have Sudarshan joining in with cues from the F&O space. Sudarshan, the GIFT Nifty for now is indicating a muted start, but what is the F&O setup looking like?
So it's a weekly expiry for Nifty. We'll have to see if we get to see any direction, because as far as yesterday's session was concerned, it was mainly because of the big buying that we saw in mid caps, and that's the reason market breadth was healthy in favor advances in the ratio of 3:1. But as far as Sensex and Nifty are concerned, it was a close with minor gains, and similar momentum was seen in the flows front also. In the cash market, we have seen minor buying by both FIs and DIs. Also in the index futures, FIs have bought nearly rupees 300 crore, and the long unwinding continues for second straight day. We have seen FIs have reduced long positions by almost 34,800 contracts, but good parties, short addition is not that much, just it was around 1,800, and with this FIs long exposure remains around 38%. On the option front, 25,000 call continues to see healthy additions. There we saw addition of almost 21 lakh shares, and another call that was active was 24,700, where the addition was around 14 lakh shares. On the put side, 24,400 and 24,500 were the active ones, and it tells you that on the downside for now, for Nifty, it's limited around in the range of 24,400 to 24,500, and on the upside resistance around 25,000. As far as stocks are concerned, two stocks remain in the band, and those are CDSL and Manappuram, and one stock that has entered in the band is Hindustan Copper.
The usual suspects still in the F&O band, right? Manappuram, Hindustan Copper, but interesting list there, Sudarshan. Thanks a lot for that. You know, yesterday there was a fund manager survey that BofA had come out with, and they had said that India has now become the most preferred market for Asian fund managers, overtaking Japan compared to the previous month's survey. And that is a similar sentiment which is being excluded by Mark Mobius as well, who says that India right now is the most exciting place to be in. And that is, of course, what he had to say. Listen in to his exclusive interview with CNBC.
China is not the only game in town. We're now seeing all these other countries entering the export market and being able to compete. So it's really very exciting to see what's happening around the world. And probably the most exciting place now is India, because India is going to be taking the place of China in many, many areas. And we've already seen companies like Apple and others come to India to manufacture and export. So India, Vietnam, Taiwan, Turkey, those are the ones that are looking very interesting for us at this stage. But as you pointed out, there are many other markets around the world that are doing better than the US. The big problem with India is bureaucracy. As you know, they inherited this incredible bureaucracy from the British, and the party that took over, the Congress party took over, perpetuated that bureaucracy. But Modi, the new prime minister, has done a tremendous job in cutting through a lot of the bureaucracy, but still there's a lot to be done. And he's digitizing the entire economy. First of all, by getting digitized identity cards for everybody, so money can be transferred directly to bank accounts, even to the poorest people in the country. But this takes time. I call it the United States of India, because you have all these states, many of them with different languages, both written and spoken languages. So to unify this country is quite a job, but still the opportunities are there because you have a lot of very smart people. And as you say, it's the most populous country in the world now. We figure about 1.2 billion people compared to, I would say, now India's bigger than China. China maybe 800 to 900 million. Well, gold is a favorite of mine. I believe everybody should have some gold, maybe 10% of the portfolio, regardless of where the price is at any point in time. It's good at dollar cost average into gold. As regards to crypto, it looks like the US is bound to become a leader in crypto, and that is going to be very important going forward. I personally am not a big fan of crypto, but members of my team are convincing me that we've got to do more in crypto. So we're looking at it more carefully. I'm particularly interested in the crypto exchanges rather than the...
Well, let's slip into a break. Up next, on the other side, we'll take you through the earnings from Eicher Motors. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Now on to some earnings reactions. Then Eicher Motors reported a strong fourth quarter performance, which was largely in line with expectations. Sudarshan is back with us to take us through the fine print of those numbers. Sudarshan.
So there is nothing much to complain as far as Eicher Motors earnings are concerned. With TVS Motors, it's one of the outperformers. If you take a look at the stock performance over the last few months, also along with stock performance, every month that these companies report wholesale data on that front, also Eicher Motors has been one of the outperformers. As far as the Q4 earnings are concerned, performance is as per company's book. Growth remains strong, while margin has moved slightly lower against our expectations. As far as headline numbers are concerned, profit was up 27%, revenue has increased 23%, EBITDA too has moved higher by 11%, but it has come slightly lower than our expectations. Margin has come at 24% against our expectation of 24.9%. This is about headline numbers. But if you look at the internals, volumes were up both sequentially and year-on-year. Also, realization has improved. It was up 1% sequentially, and as per our expectation, it was down YOY. Market share was up. If you look at the market share in the segment of more than 250cc, where Eicher Motors is the leader. In that segment, market share is up 100 basis points sequentially, and it's up 40 basis points year-on-year. About the outlook, company is saying that it will continue to see a growth because rural demand has been healthy. Also, in the month of April, it has seen in urban area, demand has been coming back.
Well, thank you so much for that, Sudarshan. That was the take on Eicher Motors. But moving on then, the government has confirmed that the Indian Air Force bypassed and jammed Pakistan's air defense systems during Operation Sindoor. The centre also said that all strikes were executed without any loss of Indian assets. Parikshit takes us through how India thwarted Pakistan's attempts to attack us.
This is extremely important. This goes to show the amount of planning that had gone into the technological warfare that India was about to indulge in to eliminate those terror caps in Pakistan as part of Operation Sindoor. So all of this happened on 6th night and 7th morning, and sources tell us that meticulous planning was done to bypass and jam Pakistan's Chinese-supplied air defense systems, and India was successful in doing so. The entire mission was completed in 23 minutes, and this shows the strength of Indian technology, Indian defense shields, and indigenous manufacturing as well. Post-Operation Sindoor, we have seized, and this is evidence in the hands of Indian forces, Chinese PL-15 missiles, which are used against India, Turkish Yaya drones. These are armed drones, which are also used against the Indian forces and Indian civilian areas. India's loitering munitions, we're told, carried out offensive strikes on Pakistan's Noor Khan and Rahim Yar air base. All strikes were executed without loss of Indian assets. Now, this is important because it has been said that there was significant damage caused to Indian air bases. None of that has happened. The government again and again saying that we did not lose our assets in this entire operation, be it our air defense systems, be it our air bases. So none of that has been damaged. Indian forces were able to complete the mission successfully. We were able to carry out extensive attacks on Pakistani air bases on the 9th and 10th. At the same time, there was 10 satellites working round the clock to ensure safety and security of citizens and also support our armed forces.
Parikshit, thanks a lot for that update. Take a short break. Up next, we get you cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC-TV18. Now getting you the latest on Trump-related developments. We now have Dia joining in in our special segment, Trump Watch.
Power deals, political signals, and a pause in global trade war. It's been a high-stakes day in international affairs. The U.S. is deepening economic ties in West Asia, eyeing diplomacy with Iran and cooling tensions with China, all in a matter of hours. We begin in Doha, where the numbers are making headlines. The White House announced that President Donald Trump has secured deals totaling more than $243.5 billion with Qatar, laying the groundwork for a bigger $1.2 trillion economic pledge with the tiny Gulf country. The president also said Qatar Airways had placed a record order for 210 planes from Boeing as he signed a raft of deals in Doha alongside Qatar's Emir. The order, Boeing's largest ever for its wide-body jets, deepens ties between the US aerospace giant and the joint carrier. The announcements came on the second leg of Trump's swing through West Asia, a day after the president touted some $600 billion investment by Saudi Arabia in US manufacturing, products and services. Donald Trump also voiced hope on Wednesday that diplomatic efforts would succeed on Iran's nuclear program, even as he vowed rigorous enforcement of sanctions. Trump, on his first visit to West Asia since returning to the White House, said he spoke about Iran with the leader of Qatar, which maintains relations with both longtime adversaries. That's all for today. Now back to you.
Dia, thanks a lot for that. And Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. You'd not imagine saying this so soon, but gold prices are at a one-month low.
Well, yes, they are. They're trading at a 5-week lows right now. And we did see prices go down to $3,175 an ounce. That has quite a sharper cut. 2% of a decline in the overnight markets, and we're still trading in the negative right now. But clearly, the focus is shifting away from safe havens. The U.S.-China trade tension seems to be diminishing, and softer than expected U.S. inflation reading also seems to be weighing onto the markets here. It's not just about gold. Silver fell 1.5% overnight. Copper prices fell 1.5% as well, and the crude oil prices are down 1.5% right now in Asia as Iran signals to a nuclear deal with the U.S. if the sanctions are lifted from U.S. on Iran. So we are looking at a lot of easing of tensions coming in. It's a risk on and a lot of safe haven commodities, and the commodities that had gained in the recent few past weeks seem to be going in for profit taking right now.
Well, thank you so much for that, Manisha. But moving on then, tensions erupt in Gaza as Israeli airstrikes targeted various locations. This even as US President Donald Trump continues his visit in the West Asian region. Take a look at this report.
Israeli military strikes killed dozens of Palestinians across the Gaza Strip on Wednesday. That's according to local health authorities. It's a significant intensification of the bombardment in Gaza, while US President Donald Trump continued his visit to the Middle East. Medics said most of those dead were killed in Israeli airstrikes targeting houses in Jabalia, an area in northern Gaza. The Israeli military had no immediate comment and said it was trying to verify the reports. Hadi Mokbel, whose relatives were killed in the strikes, said the military fired 2 rockets, killing children, a woman and a baby. Itimad al-Najjar was also in the area when the strikes hit.
We were sleeping peacefully when the oppressors hit them. They hit them and hit the whole region we're in. 14 martyrs inside the house. People are still under the rubble. Have mercy on us. Enough blood, enough martyrs, enough worries. Stop the war on us. Stop the blood.
She added that, quote, nobody is left in Gaza anymore. In strikes the day before, security officials said they believed Hamas military leader Mohammed Sinwar had been killed. That's according to Israeli press reports. Israel's intensified bombardment comes amid Palestinian hopes that Trump's visit to the region will provide pressure for a reduction of violence. And Hamas on Monday released Eden Alexander, the last known living American hostage. Trump's envoys have said they now see a better chance for a new release deal for the remaining hostages. The US has also presented a plan to reopen humanitarian aid deliveries in Gaza using private contractors. Israel has blockaded all supplies going into Gaza since March the 2nd.
And with that, we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast from Amakshimi and the team that put this show together. Thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call sets you up for the day's trade.